This is Sports Epreneur. Stephen, I appreciate you being here. And when we got going here, I saw the Air Force hat over there, the helmet. And I know Villanova was also in there. You made a transition from a military academy over to Villanova. So we're talking about NIL, we're talking about transfer portal today and all that kind of stuff. You were there, right? What was that?
So, meaning at the academy just to switch over to regular school?
Yeah, you were in that portal before it was called the portal.
Sure was. The old-fashioned way. The way that a young man at 18, 19 years old had to walk into the office of an adult that you admired deeply, your head coach, right? And also feared a bit because they were holding the key to your success. And at that time, you had to grab yourself by the bootstraps, walk yourself in your coach's office, look him in the eye, and tell him, basically, I don't like you or this school, quote unquote, and please grant me permission to leave. Now, my circumstance, it was nothing to do with not liking. I loved the institution. I loved the Air Force Academy. Totally was one of the greatest opportunities of my life. I needed a change. I needed something different. I needed a different route, right? And it was something that I had to really deeply communicate with my family about, my own self, some of my friends. But I had to walk into Coach Fisher DeBerry's office. Now, this is a Hall of Fame coach.
Yeah.
And I had to fear the wrath of what is he going to say? And is he going to grant permission to leave, sign off on it? But I tell you what, that taught me a lot. That sure was a big part of my education because that took from a little boy coming out of high school, and then that transitioned me where I really had to know what I wanted to say. I had to say it properly to him, and I had to stand on my own 2 feet and say, this is something that I'm looking to do, and I'm asking you for permission. This has nothing to do about you. You're a wonderful coach. This is an amazing program. I'm just needed to make a move that's best for me.
Yeah. What year was this? Mid-90s?
Oh, shoot, that's mid-90s. Yeah, we're talking 97, 96, 97.
Yeah. What happened? You say that, what was the conversation on the back end of that?
So, I love Coach DeBerry. He is one of those all-time classic great coaches, but his comment was, son, this is the worst decision of your life.
Yeah.
And that was his.
Yeah.
And I had to swallow and sit with that. And it was a mad rush. It was a mad rush to figure out something else in that time period and how to get to another institution that, for my sake, it was an institution that was going to allow me to play 2 sports. Right. So that narrowed things down to a very small amount of institutions. And one of them was University of Virginia. One of them was Villanova. And one of them was a very small Division III, Franklin and Marshall. That was a great academic institution that I said, okay, I could go there and just focus on academics and play a much lower level of ball and track and field, but get a phenomenal education.
Yeah, I get it. I remember I was talking to a boss. I was leaving a company. I'd been there for 9 years, and they knew I wanted to go, and I was done, right? I wanted to start my own business at this point. And we had a meeting. We walk out of the meeting, and we're kind of in the pit where other people around, and she kind of comes close to me, and she says, you can't leave, right? She's like, you have 3 kids, and you need health insurance and all this kind of stuff. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, not only did I want to leave beforehand, that just said I was so gone. I was already gone. They didn't know I was gone, but I was gone. And hearing that type of stuff, and it's hard, right? When you're a young person, you're doing this and you're being challenged. And yeah, you might be a young person, you might have a family, whatever that might be. That's just a lot to carry for anybody. And I feel, even when I'm saying that now, I can still feel that, whether it's chills or anxiety or whatever that might be, that's just a lot. So I can imagine for you dealing with that in a time when it's not the norm. And let me ask you this, did you have to sit out a year at that point?
I did not, because of this was one of the areas that I had to consider when I was looking at University of Virginia at the time. Yes, I would have, but because I went from Division I single A to Division I double A, it was called at that time, I did not have to sit out. So that came into the factor as well. Yeah. I was very nervous and scared about sitting out. I was a nervous 19-year-old that it's never going to be the same. And what am I going to do for that 1 year of sitting out? And how am I going to get myself back on track? So that led into the decision, God's plan of landing at Villanova.
Yeah. I talked to a buddy of mine. He played at Ohio State. This was 2000, right before Urban Meyer had come. And he was a safety. He was doing well. Another safety came in who was like a 4-star kid and he was going to play, right? And he's like, I could transfer to Duke, but I'd have to sit out a year. And I don't know what, so he had to deal with that and he didn't transfer. And so he thinks back today, like, would I have transferred? I don't know. Now he made amazing connections. He worked at Ohio State after he graduated. He learned a ton and all this kind of stuff. So he didn't transfer because he didn't want to sit out that year, but he didn't play a ton. Like he made big plays, special teams, that was the conversation. And they were right before that time, right? You're thinking like 2010, 11, 12. And that's like leading up to the new decade of where we are now and where the transfer portal, as you know, and as you've seen, it's a different game than what you played in the 90s to then to now.
It sure is. And both have its pluses and minuses. That old school transferring made you think a little bit more. Like I mentioned earlier, it made you step out of your comfort zone and communicate with an adult in a very adult manner. It made you truly think through the process. And today, the flip side of it is, nope, there's a little bit of you don't have to entertain the coach. You don't have to sort of engage, but at the same time, you have the freedom, right? And so hopefully in these next couple of years here, we're going to see a nice mesh where the core value of collegiate athletics combines with this. And hey, how do we use this as an opportunity for the young women and men to move about freely based upon their own needs and circumstances, but at the same time, how do we incorporate the education? How do we incorporate something here that helps them develop their character, their skill sets, so that when they're done with their university experience, this was not just a change, this was an opportunity for growth?
Yeah. So let's back up real quick because I want to go right back into that. There's so many people that are getting into NIL right now. There was the gold rush and no one was into gold until it's like, oh, there's gold there. We need to go. So I understand why more people, agents, advisors, coaches, whatever, are getting into this NIL space. But then what you uncover is you start talking to people, you're like, oh gosh, this is dangerous, right? So I think it's important that whoever's listening to this understands if they've never met you before, heard about you, or haven't seen anything, a quick, just real quick, because you have a positive mindset around NIL, right? And we can talk about all that stuff. 42U, yourself, what is it that you do specifically that comes to mind right now for you that you help whoever you're helping with in regards to NIL?
Well, if I could, I'll jump on this first since you opened up about, hey, the explanation of NIL. And it is a crazy market. And a lot of people are jumping in. It's like, think about it. Go west, son. There's gold, right?
Right.
And, all right, now what do I do? Okay, so what does that bring? And that brings a lot of things, right? That brings opportunists, right? And with opportunists, you get certain type of people and you get another type of people. So in this, what I feel in the NIL world, and this is one of the reasons why I wanted to get involved. And let me just preface this. What we do in our company, we're not an NIL company. We just support parts of the NIL world. And I think I'll be able to explain this a little bit out. So NIL, the only thing it did is that it exposed the value of the athlete. Okay, make that very simple. But in the course of that, no one built the infrastructure to develop the human. And when NIL opened up, everybody rushed to build the marketplaces, the collectives, the payment vehicles, but very few asked that deeper question. Who's the athlete? How do they make decisions? How do they handle visibility? How do they build something sustainable instead of just transactional? And I'm sorry, but today, these are the questions that are necessary in the NIL space, in the recruitment space. And it's the same questions that corporations are thinking when considering hiring people. Now, you throw in AI and the corporation says, hey, I have the technical job done. Shoot, I need to know who you are and how you vibe. So when we were looking at this, what we saw was a massive white space around identity, discovery, and decision-making. And so at our company, 42U, we just built what we call the internal human resource layer for college athletics. And that's the core competency. We start with assessment and understanding how an athlete processes information, how they handle adversity, right? These are all important factors during the educational process, how they communicate, how they lead, how they perform under pressure. And then from there, we built the structured branding and life after sport development around who they actually are. And like any good business, I believe a leader should layer the business in passion. right? Some kind of passion point. And I found the most passion on solving the fact that most students are rewarded just for performance, but
Yeah.
are rarely developed for identity.
Yeah.
And when their performance fluctuates, and this comes from years of being invested in athletes across multiple spectrums, youth, college, professional, when performance fluctuates or ends, they don't know, we don't know, as a former athlete, who we are. And this coupled with a new world of personal brand exposure for long-term professional growth, shoot, that's what gets me going. And so we're trying to solve for sustainability, not just monetization.
Yeah, I love it. These kids have intellectual property, I hear you saying, like, and not just today, but down the road, right? Like you look at someone like a Kobe who knew he had obviously one of the best players ever. Someone like that could come out of it. And what was most amazing is the career trajectory he was on after he played. But that didn't start, oh, I'm hanging up, I'm not playing anymore. Now let me go figure out what I want to do. He knew exactly what he was already doing it in many respects. And these kids at these universities, there's leverage, whether they have the leverage or where they can get the leverage. I mentioned Ohio State before. Like imagine you play at a university like that or any university and the people and the resources and the community that you're surrounded by. And if you access that community, what that could actually do to you to catapult you later on based on you don't make it to the next level, you get injured, you don't want to play anymore, something else comes up, right? Like there's just all sorts of things. These kids have that IP that can be taken advantage of, but they're kids, right? And so that's why I would imagine someone like yourself and your company can come in there and help people out and understand this and give them some like, yeah, because that identity thing's real too. We work with a lot of mental health companies and I've been amazed. Like I remember leaving college and being like, I want to go back to college. Like, this sucks. Like, what am I going to do? Like, I got friends in college. They're going out tonight. I'm trying to figure out jobs and work and whatever. And like that transition to become like you're an athlete and you're playing in front of people, whether it was 1,000 people or 100,000 people, like you have a teammate, you have a locker room, you have a community there. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden one day it's just over. Like, regardless, it's for some point, at some level, it's going to end. And what do you do? And I've been amazed to watch the identity of like, what do I do now? And there's like serious problems in that area. And there's so many people in mental health that are helping people out because athletes are going through this stuff, right? So what you're talking about isn't just NIL. Like, yeah, NIL is a big part of it, right? And it just happens to be, and it's a way to monetize and all this kind of stuff. It's like, there's so much more going on because this is lifelong, right? This is just the beginning of what they're going to be able to do. Anyway, I'll stop there, but you see what I'm saying.
No, man, I tell you what, Eric, this is one of the main reasons that I was excited to be on this podcast. Identity is the next gen type talk. And you talk about that often, right? And you just had a beautiful monologue about the course of identity and where this is leading us. And brand pressure without identity clarity leads to anxiety, right? And anxiety is crippling. It's a hormonal development, right? It's a mental development that literally is crippling in so many people, and it's so often unrecognized, right? An 18-year-old with a phone and a following, you talked about IP, right? An 18-year-old with a phone and a following is now a media company. But Eric, that's a heavy psychological load. Social media rewards performance, right? Comparison and the speed of getting information out there. But in a developmental stage, which college athletes are in, that requires reflection, patience, alignment, right? Those are when we say people talk about, hey, the way it used to be. Well, there was layers of reflection, patience, and alignments. And this is where, I think this is where the grownups in the room need to reflect, rise up, and educate. Seriously, right?
Yeah.
This is where the leaders in the room need to really reflect and assist the collegiate athletes in the fiduciary responsibility of the educational organizations. And you can still make a ton of money. You can still, it's like you can have a great company that does billions of dollars and you can still do good.
Right. Yeah. Man, it's so true. I know your kids are going through or have been through the college process or starting to and all that kind of stuff. And you show up on these college campuses and you watch these universities, whether they have a football program, they all have, athletes or whatever. And you go around and the anxiety of just even getting into school, what they create. I've seen universities. So last year, my daughter was going into college and they would update the admission, like the percentages of kids that get into a school. Yeah. It was the highest number of applications in the history last year, right? So some of these universities who had an acceptance rate of X, right? Like Okay. That year, last year, that number dropped like maybe in half or 20% or whatever. They haven't disclosed what those numbers are this year because they don't want to prevent kids from applying so they can raise how many kids applied, how much, and I know they have 50, $100, whatever to apply, their yield rate, right? Their acceptance rate. These numbers matter to them. At what cost, though, to the kids? Because you're just creating, like you just said, anxiety. And once you create that anxiety, then what? Now that stuff is that's ongoing. And then you get to college. And again, it should be competitive, right? I'm sure when you played at Air Force at Villanova, it's going to be, you know what? You might not get accepted. You might lose. That's okay. Because I promise you, if you come in here and you don't do it the right way, and my business partner comes in, is not happy, he's going to tell you. He was in the Air Force. He knows what it's like. He's going to talk to you, not like you're in the Air Force, but he's going to share his thoughts and he's going to tell you the way it is. I've seen kids come in here and get A's and B's and 4.0s or whatever in writing, English, whatever, and they can't write. I was like, because their professor was paid to read what they wrote and they just wanted to get through it. And now they come in here and they're writing for someone else who is not paid to read it. And they're like, it's not any good. And it goes to an editor and you get a professional editor to read something. They're like a fitness coach in the gym telling you you're soft and you're weak and all. Like, editors are ruthless, right? And you wouldn't think that. And that's real stuff. That's real talk that's happening. There's just a lot in that because you said it, like the grownups need to educate. They need to stand up. Who is going to be the grownup in this situation? It's just pure chaos in many ways. Now, we have a grownup and I'm talking to one right now. And I think that's what you're doing. And that's what you're working with Rutgers University. You're working with the Big Ten. You have all these different relationships that are out there. That's important that there's people out there that are doing it because in some ways we're just watching it. And we're like, what am I watching? Because the platform that we've built here, it's a lot of like, you ever sit in a crowd and you're like watching, it could be on stage and you're watching them perform. But behind the stage, there's so much there's so much planning and prep and chaos. And what if someone's sick? What if someone gets injured? What happens? The show must go on, right? So I've always wanted to know, like, what is truly happening? So when I see a college football game or I see these conversations about NIL, I want to see the systems and the architecture that's going on with it. That's why I'm fascinated to have conversations like this. But I got my monologue going here again, so I'll stop. But like, where does that take you?
I love your monologue because I'm learning as you're speaking. It's a mess. Let's be honest. And the way I would equate the college athletic world right now, it's like a family with no matriarch, right? It's a country with poor leadership. It's a business with an absent CEO or a team with no coach, right? There's no strong leadership at the top, and that trickles down through many funnels. Let's not sugarcoat it, right? And the other people who are in charge, who are in the industry, in the universities, working hard and trying to do a great job, but there's chaos, right? And there's confusion. And when there's chaos and confusion, what does that bring, Eric? Fear. And you see a lot of that. You see a lot of brilliant individuals working in fear. But one thing, the fans are getting a great show. So you ask, like, behind the veil, the fans are getting a great show, right? There's a lot to talk about on X, right? There's lots of great things on Instagram being shared, and the sport is still being played, sports in general, at a very high level. We're playing sports at a higher level than we've ever played before because young athletes today have been prepared for all this for a much longer time than what we were used to. Okay. So we're getting think about it. We just had 100 meter in the state of Texas win what I think was 9.89 in the high school 100 meters. And
that's crazy.
Out of the 8, the slowest time out of the top 8 was 10.5. Think about the evolution of athletics. So as a piece of entertainment, right? And that's why you're going to a basketball game, a volleyball game, a football game. You're going to enjoy and be entertained. The fans are getting a great show. And the athletes are finding their way, right? They're finding their way. They're like, you hear that phrase, I'm sure you've raised kids. Children are resourceful, right? They'll figure things out, right? It's tough in the house. Some things are happening, going on. Kids figure it out eventually, right? We may need some therapy later on, but we figure it out, right?
Yeah.
In the moment, we figure it out. But this is leading to an evolution, and it's just happening at chaotic speeds, right? And so the college athletic marketplace is transitioning from this amateur model to a business model all in real time, right? The media deals are kind of exploding. Revenue sharing conversations are actually real. And this transfer portal mobility is extremely constant, right? So the athlete is now this economic engine. And this takes place not just in your high-flying FBS, big-time schools, right? The athlete is an economic engine at all of the institutions. Because like you mentioned, the athletes in today's world, the athletes have their own IP, right? And this is the area that third-party businesses have begun to understand. Athletes carry a strong IP historically, right? You can go back to the 50s and 60s, right? Who was the most popular person in the school? The athlete of some sort, right? It was just natural because you had the ability to be branded. You were recognized, whether it was a small local paper or it was just because everybody came out to the game on Friday night and they saw you, right? So you always had that IP. It's a fact that student athletes have a 5.5 engagement rate on Instagram versus a non-athlete influencer that the average rate is 2.2. Interesting, right? And so third-party companies are realizing that. So the reason I say that is because even at small universities, the athletes are an economic engine because in today's world, and you just mentioned that your daughter went through the process last year. I had 2 go through this year, right? So we're in the same boat as to going through that college application process and the college selection process. My kids didn't look at anything from the actual university. You know where they got all their information from? They got their information from third-party influencers that are at the university.
Yeah.
They didn't listen to a single thing that the university sent. I don't think they read anything the university sent, but they were very informed about their decision. They knew the university, they knew it well, they knew why they wanted to attend there and why they wanted to apply there. But it came from third party, right? And you think about it, when you have an athlete, even at a Division III school, that athlete is exposing that school to other like-minded peers. So there you go with that economic engine.
Yeah, that's crazy. You're so right, too, because you could go visit a school, you get the tour, you see the beautiful campus, you meet the one person who's already been they've been trained in how to sell the school and all that kind of stuff. And at the end of the day, when you get there, that's not it.
Right.
It's the people, it's the professors, it's the whatever, it's those interactions, that little stuff. And like you said, yeah, you go on TikTok or Instagram and you get people who showed up on campus and the real students that went there or students that visited there, and you get all that information. And yeah, information's wild today because you don't want it direct from the source because they could be not telling you the truth. And then you got to use your own intuition to figure it out. What I hear, I wrote this down. I was like, data and psychology. Like you're living in this world of, there's a lot of theory and I can play in that game, right? Like my mom's an artist and you could be a creator and you can think in abstract. And I love that. And I think that's super important, right? The art of it, like I'm all about it. If you can marry that with data, like real information, and then psychology, right? Like understanding like what's going on here. What does that look like? I mean, you just gave a number and I've never heard someone share that. 5.5 influence rate on Instagram as an athlete versus someone else. That's more than double, right? 2.2 to 5.5, more than double. That's significant. And brands know that, CMOs know that, large companies know that. We know that, and I know that now. And that's super telling, right? It's known. It's like we can understand, the athlete's the most popular. But what does that mean in Instagram world? What does that mean if I want to hire someone to carry my drink around or whatever that might look like? And obviously companies can then make mistakes about it because then they're not aligned. It's like just because I watch a podcast and they're holding the Monster Energy drink or what is it, Celsius or something like that, that guy's not drinking it, right? I know like Kawhi Leonard's come out and like the Gatorade sitting there, the Coke sitting there. He's like, take that off my table, even though he might be sponsored by them. He's like, the kids don't want to drink that crap.
Right.
Right. They shouldn't be drinking that. Anyway, there's a lot in that, but you're coming at it from a standpoint of people are talking a lot, but what's the data say it behind it? And I feel like you're showing up to these places, like I said before, and it's not to like, here, let's talk about how great Stephen is. But I think that's important because that is useful because I don't think that's being talked about enough. We hear the big numbers like the media deals and how much millions or billions of dollars are at stake, but the data and the psychology is something I keep hearing. And even with that is something else because in a world of AI and computer engineering and math and all, it's the soft skills that you're also saying. Like you had to walk in there and have to have that sort of soft skill, even if you didn't understand it at the time, you had to walk in there and have a conversation. It wasn't like an AI putting the email together for you. This was actually you going in there and be like, let's communicate, let's shake hands, let's do that. Anyway.
Well, if you're somebody listening and you don't believe Eric or you don't believe me regarding the soft skill approach, then you believe Adam Grant, the great behavioral psychologist who wrote Hidden Potential. It's right there within the first part of his book, Hidden Potential. He gives you the history of where the terminology, hard skills and soft skills came from. It's fascinating where that came from, right? Like anything else. Hey, we use these words, but where did this actually come from? But the words resonate, right?
Where did it come from?
It came from the U.S. military in World War II.
Right. Isn't that crazy? Because I don't think people can understand that. When I read that, it's mind-blowing. And here I am talking to someone who went to the Air Force. You know it, right?
Yes.
Like, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, carry on.
That's the difference, right? They looked at hard skills, and hard skills were just because you were using a tank or a hard instrument, right? And soft skills were everything else. And then corporate America took it and turned it into a good or a bad, right? Or an important skill versus an unimportant skill. Right. And so now we're sitting in this revolution. It's so cool, right? You think our great grandparents, great parents who went through the Industrial Revolution, they didn't know they were going through the Industrial Revolution, right? We're going through the AI revolution. We're living it. We're experiencing it, right? Everything happening, all the changes, all the adaptations are happening in real time. So we're not seeing it with a historical eye. That makes a big difference. Right. And so these soft skills are the most important skills today. But what's massively important is that the soft skills need to be understood. And it's not understood through your STEM classes, right? It's not understood through your grades. It's not understood through your degrees. It's understood, number one, how you handle performance under pressure. And that's anybody at work, at home. Right? How do you respond when your partner at home is putting pressure on, right? What's your response? What's your communication like, right? As an athlete, the recruiting world is bound to flip upside down now. We've been recruiting, and I'm sorry I'm going off a little bit here. We've been recruiting the same way for 30, 40 years, right? Check out a kid, check the tape out. Hey, let me call the coach. Hey, maybe I go for a visit and visit the kid and shake their hand. And okay, I'll check out the home and go meet mom and dad, right? That's been the way for all of these years. And to a point, it's the same way that recruiting is going on today, albeit maybe you're using social media a little bit more, right? But today, the stakes are entirely different. We have abilities now to actually determine who has the mental capacity to perform at a high level. It has nothing to do because you have a 5-star body or you have 5-star speed or you're the perfect size to play soccer, whatever it might be, right? We have to move away and realize how many times have we been fooled, right? Take Bryce Young, for instance, right? How many times have we been fooled that, oh, you have to be 6'3" to 6'5" to be a great quarterback? Really? Right? And Kyler Murray has 4.4 speed. Bryce Young doesn't have 4.4 speed. Right? Bryce Young has the performance under pressure metrics. He has the mental capacity to perform at a professional level. That's why the man is successful at what he does. And it has nothing to do with the fact that he's probably 5'9¾". Has nothing to do with that. His performance has nothing to do with that. And we're bound now to truly understand that performance at a high level is not based upon physical traits. They are possible prerequisites to certain areas, but it's not a predictor of your success. And the same thing goes for just because you go to a certain school or have a certain degree, it's not a predictor of your success by any stretch of imagination. So now you talk about the college sports world, kind of circle this back into the college sports world. Now the stakes are so much higher, right? Scholarships were like monopoly money. Nobody knew really the source of the money. No one even cared. No one talked about it. But now, at multiple levels of sport, we're compensating student athletes, young adults, with cash. That cash is coming from a revenue sharing pool, right? That's outlined, and you have to stick within that pool, or they're coming from third-party collectives through donations, through third-party companies. And guess what? When a donation is coming from a high net worth individual or money is funneling in from a third party corporation, that's not monopoly money. That money's real. And so when that money's being turned over to a young adult in 6, 7, 8-figure type numbers, you better be right. Or you better have done your homework a little bit more than visiting mom and dad at their house and having a cookie and some milk at the table and getting the the okay by the coach or because some non-athlete rated them a 4 or 5-star. You better have some more factual information. And I think, doesn't that make us better people overall, right? Now we're really valuing somebody's true abilities. And when you couple that with we're putting them in the right environment to educate themselves and become better people, now we're doing the jobs the universities are actually supposed to do.
Yeah. What happens? Okay, so we get rid of maybe hunch and ego a little bit, right? Like the whole baseball thing, like I got a hunch this guy's due, right? That whole thing, leave him in, right? You can't do that anymore. Like get him out. I don't care if he's throwing a no-hitter. And the ego of like, well, I'm right, so that's my guy, and I want to bring him in here, and I'm going to show you that he's the guy, even though you're just going off of like what I saw, and you make a prediction. Okay, so now let's say you get him in there, and you've gone through all this stuff, and age matters, right? We just watched the college football national championship, and they weren't the only universities, Indiana and Miami, that had players that were older, right? A lot of universities did, and I've brought this university up before, Ohio State. They have older players too, right? Don't get me wrong. They had some younger players, and so this year they've gone out and specifically and said, we're going to get older. We're going to go, this receiver who's a 5-star who came here, he's a freshman, he's leaving. Someone offered him more money. So we're going to go bring in a safety, a corner, and they're going to be 22, 23 years old. Because if we're going to go play against a team and they got 23, 24, 25-year-olds out there now, we got to compete with that. So now we're getting to the transfer portal a little bit. So it's not just age, right? These kids are coming and going, and there's a lot of different directions we can go with this. But you can do all the right things, and the university could like now say, okay, now we're supposed to be doing this right stuff that you just talked about. But the kid's 21, 22, and off they go because someone paid them more money. They have a better opportunity there. They might make more. They don't want to take the chance of even going the NFL draft in that scenario because what if they don't get drafted? That's not a sure thing. Maybe they're a 4th or 5th round pick. A lot of those guys end up not getting drafted, and then you're trying to make a team, and in a year or two, you could be out of football. So you could stay in college and actually make money working with a brand and NIL deal, which is an amazing thing, right? Because don't we want that? Don't we want these kids to have these opportunities? You want to just set up, sorry, you put your time in, you're gone, please leave. But it's complicated, right? There's so many different directions I could go. Anyway, I'll stop. But when it comes to the age and the moving around and the transfer portal and the universities, because Ryan Day just wants to have a better football team.
Right.
And he wants to do the right things. And he's very into mental health and all that, right? But he gets paid to win. And if you lose a game, God forbid 2 games, that's a real problem at Ohio State in a lot of these places.
It sure is. And listen, at the end of the day, yes, coaches are hired to win games. However, coaches are not the end bosses at the institutions.
Yeah.
Right. The athletic directors, the university presidents, right? It's their job to educate, right? It's their job to set the standard of it, right? The Coach Day's job is to win, and his back is against the wall if he doesn't win. That only has to do with the AD and the leaders of the university. Nobody else. The fans can hoot and holler all they want, right? But if the university feels that Coach Day is doing the mission of the university, and maybe they just lost 4 games that year, well, then you figure out how to communicate with the fans, right? And make them happy about things. But at the end of the day, you know that you're doing right. You know that you're providing a valued situation and education for the student athletes to be developed, right? In a multitude of ways. Because when we really think about, right, we have so much fun talking about NIL and revenue share, but it is such a small population of the student athlete base throughout the country. Really, I mean, when you talk about Division I sports, I think there's 197,000 Division I athletes altogether, right? And you're talking about such a small percentage that there's only 60,000 of them, give or take, that are actually participating in revenue share. But what this has done, Eric, is that this has turned athletics on its back, and it's almost forgotten the core competency of what it represents. And it represents an institution of education and using sport to educate the student athlete at the same time, entertain, engage, and support a fan base that may be alumni, may be people from the local community, may be youngsters from the area, right? And that's the whole flow of the college athletic system. And I like to say this often, that college sports is not a business, but there's a lot of business in college sports.
I heard you say that. what do you mean? Like, when I watch it now, I see a lot of business. You said there's a lot of business in it. I mean, I see, like, I don't know what the next level of a lot. It seems like it is almost a business now. And not even just college sports, maybe just youth sports, like, right? I'm sure you've been involved with that. You played it. We talk about it a lot, like the pay to play. You want to play in this league? It's $5,000. Then you got to travel. Then you got to buy the equipment. Then you got to do this. Like, I don't know how many billions of dollar industry it is. It's big. Then it goes into high school and all that kind of stuff. And now these high schools are building stadiums. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? It's just like an opportunity. It's a way to create attention. It's a way to bring people to your campus and buy the hamburgers and buy the t-shirt and, want to be a part of something. And I think that's what you're saying a lot. And I've always said sports bring people together. And I also wrote a piece on the other side of it, sports tear people apart. If your team loses, like, I got to let you know that your team lost and they were terrible, right? There's that going on. We see the fight every weekend. Just get on X or TikTok and you see the fights that are breaking out in the stands, sometimes between their own fans, right? Usually alcohol's involved with it or a team losing, right? It's chaotic. But sports also bring people together. It brings a community together, right? The Olympics is an example. The USA Hockey, the men's and women's team brings people together. On the flip side of it, afterwards, now it's also tearing people apart because then it gets political and something, which is crazy. But by and large, sports is a thing that brings people to one spot, sit in a stadium, sit at the bar, sit at your house, watch it somewhere at a park, I don't know, and just participate together. And it's amazing. It's an amazing thing. And I think college does it in a way that's like rivals what we see in Europe with soccer. Mm-hmm. And it's super enjoyable and we like it. It's just there's a lot of money involved, right? It just is what it is. And that's not a bad thing necessarily, but I think it's just that's the truth of the matter. And these in universities, and I've heard it, like they make a lot of money. They also have to spend a lot of money to get the money to come in there. It's like you're talking about our kids going to college. The amount of money, I off the top of my head, I don't know. And I was talking to someone who's building an AI program around recruiting and retention and getting these kids to come to their college campuses. They spend a lot of money to get these kids to even consider going to their college. They have endowments, right, of billions of dollars, a lot of these universities. All that said, there's a lot of money at stake. And maybe that's it. Like the stakes are high. There's a lot of money at stake. It is what it is. And college sports just happens to be living at the forefront of all of it. And football, obviously the main driver, basketball. But then it gets into some of the other ones. Again, a lot of the conversation we're just having here is I'm just going to say that, lay it on the table and let you take it where you want to go with it.
Yeah, like I said, I believe in that notion that college sports is not a business because there you go back to leadership. But there's a lot of business to be made in college sports, and that's a wonderful thing because the bigger the business is, the more opportunities there are.
Yeah.
The more opportunities for fans to truly engage, right? There's nothing cooler than going to a beautiful stadium that has tremendous amenities, that has easy parking, that has a great egresses, right? That has great views for all the fans. And if you're lucky enough to be able to go to a suite, there's nothing better than watching a game in a suite with food and family and friends. That's just life 101, right? That's wonderful. And that comes from the exposure to financial growth. However, the core competency of what we do, right? The core competency of what college sports does is not a business. It's to educate and develop young people, young leaders. And that's where I mean that it's not a business. That doesn't mean that you can't do business from there, because that should then go directly back to, which it does a lot of. It goes directly back. If this is an area where, people say, hey man, your kids do a lot of things, or you really emphasize with young people who have abilities and talents to really put a lot of effort into sports at a young age. You're darn right I do. Reason why? Do you know the resources you have when you play a sport and you go to college? You have 5 times more of the resources than the average kid at that university. So if I'm around a young individual that has a love and a passion and may have some talent that could carry them to any level, I don't care, D3, D2, D1, it doesn't matter. If you have the ability to play a sport at that university and get your education, you are one up on everybody else because the university puts a lot of resources into that. If you're a student athlete at a Division I level, you have tutors at any crossing that you need. You have the ability to be mentored by high-level people who are attracted to the athletic department. You just need to raise your hand, speak up, and follow through, right? And so when that's available, why wouldn't you encourage a young individual to learn the values, to learn, listen, I'm still an advocate of the Mamba mentality, right? Just put your head down, work, do the right things, focus, drive towards your passion, and don't let anybody steer you away from that. And so if you have a young individual that has that kind of opportunity, that end goal of playing a sport and getting an education in college, there's nothing better than that to set you up for success. And I think that's where the business flows back in. So the universities do a great job with that, I must say, right? They do invest heavily back into the student athlete. And that's where the business is positive, Eric. And that's why, yes, you can do business with all of this. You can use your student athletes as powerful IPs and then tie that IP back into the university's IP so that you can attract corporations to wrap their arms around you, so that you can service a new building that provides higher academic assistance to the student athletes. Or you can provide a new performance training center that not only gives better health, mental and physical health benefits to the student athletes, it's also opened the door to probably 30, 40 more jobs on that campus to high-level people who are in the field of performance training, physical therapy, mental training, whatever it might be, right? Those are building professions. So you just open the door for more job opportunities.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the economic engine you're talking about.
Yes.
And there's definitely we have the whole NIL pros and cons. We have a piece that's out there and it's got in the waves in front of people. And there's definite like concerns and negatives and all that kind of stuff. And what you're seeing is like, you can take advantage of it. The universities can take advantage of it, the professors, the students, and to have someone like you out there that's helping them out. Like that is the pro of this. There's more money. There's more available. So what do we do with it? And like you just said, we just need more adults in the room. We need more people and more infrastructure and more of this. And for someone to be out there and be like, here's how you can take advantage of it. And you're right, because there are so many student athletes across all sports, diving, swimming, lacrosse, soccer, baseball, right? Like the list goes on, fencing. And I think that's huge. I think that's a good thing. And you're the one seeing it and working with the universities. So you can speak about it because you're in the room with them, having the conversations and saying, you wouldn't say this if you're like, no, they're full of shit. I don't buy any of it. You're not saying that. Like, correct me if I'm wrong. You work with the Big Ten. You work with Rutgers University.
Yes.
What are you seeing? I mean, you're saying it already. Is there anything specific that comes to mind for you of like an example of whatever, the type of conversations, the type of people that you're engaging with? You're like, man, these people are positive sum people, right? Like when I talked about mental health before, you talk to someone in the mental health community, positive sum, right? They want everything for everybody else, right? If you're a sports agent and you're working in the NBA, then you better figure out how you're going to get your players. That's more of a zero sum. That's like, we both can't win in that game. You're saying that these universities are operating in that positive sum environment, correct?
Oh, the student athletes are in great hands because the highest majority of individuals working in the athletic departments are there because they do want to make a difference in the lives of young people, period. End of story. That's where a lot of the chaos is coming from, right? Because that's been the buildup of your positioning in order to get these types of jobs, is that you are someone that's willing to sacrifice a very low wage at a young age to be a part of an athletic program for periods of time because you truly love this.
Yeah.
And the challenge is that the marketplace changed, right? Society changed. The needs of the student athlete has changed, where what I'm seeing is that you have people who truly love and support the student athletes. But now the generation, the Gen Z and Gen Alpha student athletes are in need of other requirements as well. So they now need a mix of that administrative individual that truly wants to support that student athlete and guide them. And they also need someone with tremendous outside business marketing type knowledge that can truly answer the questions and guide them in today's marketplace. So that's where some of the chaos is coming in, because you still have a saturated department with administratively skilled people, where there needs to be a 50-50 conversion of individuals, team members who have been on the outside world and have experienced third-party business, and then you need your support representatives, right? Who are in there guiding and nurturing the young lives. And so you do see a lot of positivity and a lot of desire, but there's a lot of fear because there's this. It's interesting when you're working with high-level adults, the same pressures apply. We don't change unless we've grown out of that, unless we've really worked on it. Just because you have a high-level position doesn't mean you don't fold under pressure, right? And that's what you're seeing a lot of. Even in the leadership spots, you're seeing a lot of the leaders fold to what they think is necessary in today's market. No, just hone into your core responsibility. And that's in the very best interest of the student athletes. Don't worry about the fact that everybody's calling for NIL. Right? If you do a really good job and you get a really good product and you make a school, a facility, and coaches that student athletes want to come to, guess what? It's their IP that the third parties are going to be interested in because that's where they're going to receive the return on the investment. So if you build an apparatus that educates young people that this is how you build this personal brand, this is how you engage with the outside community, and you fill a university athletic department with those types of individuals and still educate them, the third-party deals are going to come. Stop focusing on it. Stop making it your every pitch move, right? Number one, that's turning people off. Number two, the general population of student athletes do not participate in NIL. So they're looking up like, shoot, man, I just won the NCAA championship in swimming and diving, right? I'm freaking good. I just returned from the Olympics, and all you care about is the seventh string basketball player that's seeing 5 minutes a game? I literally just went to the Olympics. And people are worried about fulfilling NIL money deals for the eighth man on the basketball team because they're worried that he or she's going to transfer? Are we serious? I have empathy for the administrative staffs because that's the fear that's been placed on them. Right. And they're acting out of that, just like how adults act. So we're in this flux here. And I love, you said, being a part of it. I love being able to speak up and talk because it's coming from the outside, but it's coming from the love of student athletes, right? There's nothing more that I'm more passionate about is the human development of young people, right? Yeah. That is my brand equity. Yeah. I want to help you find the greatness that you may not see, right? Or you may not understand yet. And so I'm looking at it through those lenses. But I'm also looking at through the lens of the adults in the room. And I see what you're trying to do, but you don't have to follow that path. Yeah. It's not necessary, right? So a great team is going to come because you have a great coach. And I know in this day and age that, hey, you may need the money to bring the players. That's all there. But guess what? Curt Cignetti from Indiana is not the coolest chef in the kitchen. He's the best damn coach in the kitchen, right? And don't fool yourself. Young kids today want to play for someone that's going to make them better, period, right? You will get a crop of young individuals who will go play for a coach they think is cool. But the majority of young players, they know better today. They have put way too much time, way too much effort. Their families have remortgaged their houses, drove all over the country. They know the impact today. And it's not even the story that we used to hear, the poor kid and struggled this whole way. That's still there. But you also have that middle to upper middle class family that's been driving around for years and years supporting this dream. Well, that young mind, think about it, that young mind is much more educated than 25 years ago. Yeah. They know what's on the table and they know who's good. And they know, hey, I want to go to a place that's going to develop me. And that's what Coach Cignetti does. And guess what? When you find those players, they perform. When they perform, the big money from Mark Cuban keeps coming.
Right. Exactly.
That's just reality, right? And so every university, I'm not saying every university has a Mark Cuban, but every university has a powerful woman or man. Every university does, right? And they're all willing to support something that is powerful and that's growing and that's making a change. And so if you're an athletic director, find that great coach who's going to motivate young people. Give them the time, give them the space. And when they do, those players are going to come. And along the way, hey, you work with what you have. You know what's to say? Do what you can where you are with what you have, right? And if you only have a certain amount of money, then find the very best players that you can do with that money. And it's going to build up. And eventually, that big donor, that big investor will come along and say, hey, Now I see what you're making. So now I'm willing to really help and support this, and things will change. But the core competency of this is you're working with young-minded people who are looking for mentorship, guidance, and to have faith in someone that's going to help develop them.
Yeah. And imagine coming out in this day, the entrepreneurs that you're creating by doing this, by giving them the access to this learning. Like, even if you didn't make $1 because you've gone through the system, maybe you made a few dollars, and you learn about how this stuff, compliance, right? Financial literacy is a big one. Like, that's this thing. And like, okay, how do you manage it all now when this comes in? Who's there to support that individual? Because I've heard from agents and advisors and all these people are like, it isn't there. Questions of like, what do you mean I have to pay taxes? Right? Those are real statements said by real people and real families. Or there's other people in the family that were also part of that experience of driving. And now you have family members that are involved with it, right? Charles Barkley was like, he always, not notorious, he just talked about it a lot, like saying no to family members. And there's other people who got themselves into trouble because they hired everybody, right? Like, those books exist.
You said it great right there, Eric. You really did. That's a heck of a soundbite there, because it's stop chasing deals. Right? Build brand equity.
Yeah.
Chasing deals is like chasing followers and likes 2 years after Instagram launched, right? The majority of those people who were buying followers, they're nowhere to be found today, right? Your long-term winners in all of that growth are those who built authentic followers and that relayed valuable information. And it's the same thing for the NIL community. Right? Anyone can help an athlete get a short-term deal. That's transactional. Work on building transferable assets. I know that's what we aspire to do, is build transferable assets, right? Build the decision-making skills, the communication clarity, the media literacy, right? Media literacy doesn't stop in sports. That goes on and on for your life after sport, right? Entrepreneurial thinking, like you said, those are durable traits to build, right? NIL is just a fancy 3-letter word to get attention, really, right? It's nothing special. It's influencer marketing. We've been doing that forever.
Yeah.
So when you understand how the NIL circle is just a part of the education, right? The question is to ask, does this deal reinforce who I am? Or does it distort it, right? That mindset shift is powerful, because sustainability from authenticity and consistency builds value. It's not about the volume of posts. And when you begin to build internal clarity first, external opportunities compound. Same thing I said about the university athletic departments.
Yeah, you're 100% right. It's an asset, right? This episode, in a way, will become an asset to all of us. It'll become an asset to you. It'll continue to play, and you won't even be touching it, right? You won't have to be there to have the conversation. Someone could listen to it. And it doesn't have to be the most valuable asset, but it can be a little bit of it, and it adds to it, and it adds to your whole media infrastructure. It compounds. I mean, it's an asset to AI and Google. Now they could just see, oh, Stephen knows about NIL. Oh, he appeared on this podcast. Oh, and he talked about this. Oh, here's a transcript of what he said, right? All these little things. And now you're doing that as a young person and understanding it and coming up and making the mistakes. It's endless, because it's not just in the classroom. We all know that, right? It's not just on the field. It's in all the conversations, like in that conversation that you're still talking about today. I asked you about it, but you're still talking about it. When you walk into that coach's room and you have that conversation, what was that like? And how do you learn from that? And how would I behave in that situation if someone came to me and they worked for my company and they wanted to go somewhere different, right? There's all those things. And you're right. The media loves to create something. So we got something so easy, name, image, likeness, NIL. It's beautiful. Like, you just drop it in there and like the word gets dropped, it's said, and it's hashtagged, and you name it. But it also plays into the outrage that exists online, because it's like, well, that's not how it used to be. The way it used to be was, and I had this issue with I loved college basketball growing up. Like the Big East basketball, are you kidding me? Like, loved it. Syracuse, Georgetown, like those types of things.
Unreal.
The players staying for a minimum of 2 years, 3 years. Christian Laettner, right? 4 years, Final Four every year. Like, love him or hate him, he was you And that was something you just, oh, I can't believe Leitner's back, right? And that was just like, it's not that way anymore. But that's okay, right? It's just different, and you could opt out. There's nothing, right? And I don't watch as much college basketball as I used to, so I, in a way, kind of opted out. But I also pay attention. I kind of operate. I still watch it, right? I'm still in the infrastructure. I'm just not dialed in on a daily basis. But like, paying attention to it all is still fascinating. And I could say, oh, wait, I'm just asking for it to be the way it used to be. Well, that's not happening, right? Things change, things evolve, and it's moving faster than ever. And NIL is just a part of it. And I think you're here today and you're talking about these things like, yeah, it's chaos out there. There's no doubt about it. There's also a lot of good things that are happening, and we could see it that way as opposed to just picking up all the negative pieces. We could still write about it. We could still say this is crazy, right? This kid's 26 years old playing against a 19-year-old. And that by itself isn't crazy. We just have to understand it, like what's going on. And like you talked about, most of these kids aren't making any money in NIL, or they're getting bad advice. So how do we give them better advice? How do we learn from it? And how do they take that, like you said, take that piece, whatever that is, and turn it into something that can compound for them long after they're playing a sport?
Well, think about it, Eric. You talked about, how do we make something good of this, right? Some people can look at the world of college athletics and say, my goodness, these kids are getting paid $1 million, $500,000. Like, I haven't made that in my lifetime. Good, right? You can talk all you want about that. But then you can look at the positive side of all this, right? Where we've evolved. And number one, we're giving opportunities to some people who have never had financial opportunities before in their life, right? It's also making the educational system convert its educating ways. It's forcing us, it's not here yet, but it's forcing us to start thinking about financial literacy a heck of a lot more than we used to. Maybe eventually, Eric, we'll get it in our middle schools instead of learning some other things, learning Macbeth, right? Maybe we'll talk about, hey, how do you first start learning about money? Because at the end of the day, that is one of the most important things, right? It's not about money, but it's learning to understand what you do have, not how much you have, but what you do have. And this is kind of forcing us to take a look and say, maybe we need to start teaching this more. Maybe in the college, we're talking about college athletics, in the college athletics system of education, maybe we should be educating all of our student athletes on strong financial literacy, right? Oh, wait, okay, how is it in our best interest? Well, the more you teach them about financial literacy, the more they're going to have to donate back to your school when you call them. If you don't, they're not. Right? So if you want to think about it for your own benefit, there you go. For the benefit of them, that's allowing them to use the education that they have and build something generational over that, right? So we've seen that there are tremendous positives in this. It's just, again, I go back to what I said before. Adults need to wake up in the room and start really leading in that way to say, wait, this is telling us something. Right? Wait, we're going back to identity. Why? Because AI is going to have a massive changing impact on the way we do everything in our life. And if you don't think it's going to happen, you're already lost because it already has changed the way you go about. You're ordering things off Uber Eats or DoorDash because of AI, right? It's telling you what it wants you to eat. And you're just assuming that you're thinking that. You're not thinking that, right? AI, the algorithms have told you what to eat because it puts you right in your face. Order the same thing you did last time, right? Because they know there's no question, you'll just hit it and go, and it's beneficial. But I like to talk about intention in all this, right? Because this is something I do personally, and I do this as a parent for my young 8th grade budding athlete. Every single thing we do is intentional. And it's intentional in two ways. The first intention is my responsibility as a parent. Right? As a parent, your first responsibility is to don't let them die. The second responsibility is to feed them, clothe them, and educate them. Okay?
Yeah.
Right? As they're little kids, don't leave them unattended, right? And then as they get older, feed them, clothe them, educate them, right? And then you get to the point of, hey, as a parent, you want to help them reach the desires that they have. And if you can help influence or guide or support, right? So that's one intention. When I look at his social side, his school selection, his maneuvering through the sports world, the academic world. It's all intention as a parent to help them because I can see through the mountains that they, as young people, as you know, they don't see that yet, and that's okay. I can see it as a parent. The second one is during this process, as funky as it may be, and I'll tell you what, the recruiting world of high school athletics is funky. But I didn't look at it as, oh, I don't want this. I looked at this as, okay, well, if my son wants to be a collegiate athlete, this is part of his education, because in high school, he's going to have to deal with this. So in high school, I'm not as influential possibly, but in middle school, I am. So every step of the way, everything was intentional. Come on, coaches, go ahead. Message them. Message them all you want. Text them, DM them. I'm sitting right there. I'm evaluating every message that comes through. And I'm teaching him what the words mean, because you don't realize a 6th, 7th, and 8th grader, they may not even recognize some of the words or the way they're using the words to really understand what the coach is saying. So that's an education process. Now it's, hey, this is how you can respond to them. And here are words to use, or here's why, right? Or there's the coach. Go introduce yourself. Right? How are you going to act when you get invited to a game and you're on a sideline? This is an education. This is not just, yeah, it's fun and it's cool. But for them, I look at it as this is an education for him. He has to learn how to handle himself on the sideline. He has to realize that, hey, son, in this 1.5 hours, you're on a business trip, and know the difference, right? Some kids are going to be playing off on the side. No. You got invited here. This is a business trip for 1.5 hours. So you got to just suck it up for the 1.5 hours. And you focus on what you're supposed to do, because guess what? That coach may look over, and for one split second of that game, he may see you. And like any human, he's going to judge in that one moment. And so if you're there watching the game and focus, that's how you want a coach to see you, because you're engaged, right? And in the decision-making process, right? Why are you choosing these schools? What is the purpose? So let's learn about each institution. And let's break it all down, right? I look at these as tremendous opportunities for the young people and building your brand, okay? I look at it from my young child. Hey, what is your brand going to be and why? Because that's developing him as a person, so that he's not just identifying as a football player. He's identifying as who he is and who he represents. I just happen to be pretty good at football too. And so I think where there's chaos, there's opportunity. And when there's opportunity, there's room for growth and change.
Yeah. You're positive without like throwing positivity at somebody, if that makes sense. Like you're seeing like, yeah, this is a problem. They're going to be DMing my kid, but you're seeing it as an opportunity, but you're not like, it's not toxic positivity. I'm just like, oh, it's just like everything's great and it's raining outside, and that that's okay to think that way. I'm not judging it. I'm just like, It's very useful though to hear you say it like that, to understand like, okay, yeah, this is the world we live in. Like, and it just gives you opportunity. So do you take advantage of it? And like, obviously your kids are lucky to have you. And so with the universities, it's super useful in this chaotic times, because it is. And now you just said it, like high school, the high school recruiting, that, going from middle school to high school, or going from high school to high school. Like I see it at my kids' school. It's wild. Yeah. Football's a big deal. Basketball's a big deal. You show up there, it's like, wow, this is game day. Like this is legit. And, I know people that are upset by it. It's like, they care more about football. And there's reasons. Okay, what is the opportunity? What does that provide you? And it's given broadcast people opportunity. The fitness, the gyms are better. This is better, right? Yeah. Like you're on the national news. It might, I don't know. There's a lot of things that it can do. But, now NIL, there's that word again, in high school, right? Like we know in certain states, like you're able to do it. And like, what's that going to look like? Now they got DC's involved, right? So there's a lot there. And it's coming, I guess is what, like you said, it's here. AI's here, NIL's here, and it's coming, right? They're not the same thing. They're on the same boat. But in the same way, these things are evolving and they're going fast, and it's not going anywhere.
Absolutely. We hear cries about a younger generation that doesn't go outside, doesn't play, is, affected by the phones and the computers, right? But then we go and build a multi-million-dollar stadium or facility to host games in. We should really break it down, Eric. What does that do? That adds to community. So people like nice things. You will never take that away, right? That's why they improve the airports. That's why they make nice restaurants, right? That's why they make everything look nice, because when you go in there and you feel good about it, you're more likely to return. So in today's world, I look at this in a positive way. Build more facilities, spend the tax dollars, invest in high school facilities, because that's what draws the community in. If you make it a place that the kids want to come, there's nothing better than going to an amazing Friday night football game and you see 1,000 kids behind the stands just being kids, right? They're outside, they're engaging, they're meeting people, right? And guess where they're not? They're not out in the street. They're not at home just on their computers, on website, doing all that, on chat groups. They're in society. And then you have an adult community that's bonding. When you bring that all together, that's what that's about. And the same thing happens at a great basketball game, right? You bring people, it's cold outside in most states, right? And all of a sudden you get a community that comes in on an evening and everybody's getting together. You see people you haven't seen before. Again, the kids are all there, just being kids. That's positive. But if you have a dumpy institution and you're not investing in it, who wants to go sit there? So we need community today more than ever. So I'm an advocate of use those dollars, use the investment, use the taxes. It's a community center. And in today's world, we need community more than we've ever needed before. And as we change into an AI-based world overall, we're going to come back to those original roots of community being everything. So build it out to support that. Make the schools bigger. Make them more regionally based so that you're bringing a collection of kids from all over a region to join together, meet together, right? Use those resourceful dollars, right? And the same things at universities, right? Invest in universities, invest in the facilities across all different spectrums. But in the sports side, sports bring people together and it creates an environment. You don't even have to like football, but at a cool university, and it can be small. So invest in the scoreboard and the music and the dancing, because if you're not a football fan, you're still having a good time. That means human next to human. We're engaging with each other, right? And that unifies all of us.
Man, I love it. Well said. Very well said. On that note, Stephen, 42U, what you're doing, where you're at, where do people connect with you? Anything else that we didn't cover that you want to make sure that we take on? Floor is yours.
I appreciate it. We're very grateful to be in this field. In the college athletics world, if anybody's interested in college athletics, this is the time. This is the time in college sports and in high school sports. It's trickling down, right? They're asking more and more, the different high schools and private and public institutions are asking more and more and need more high-level people. If you're interested, even if you've never been in college sports, this is the time, this is the opportunity. There are so many businesses out there that are creating solutions to problems, and these are stepping stones to get into that world, right? And so I find that very valuable. You know, you can find us at obviously anywhere 42U. We're Instagram, the 42U. We're on LinkedIn. You can find us there. You can find me on LinkedIn as well. That's where I spend most of my social time, on the LinkedIn platforms. But we're really blessed to be in this space right now. And I'm grateful that it's kind of a copulation, an area of, I'm 50, turned 50 the other day. And
man, happy birthday.
Thank you so much. And it was one of those milestones, but I look at it as, you know, I'm really happy with where I am because it's a collection of wisdom, enthusiasm, and passion all rolled up in one, right? And then, you know, when you turn that age, you start to acknowledge more like what's in front of you. And you start to acknowledge, hey, I've gone through the kids, and I even have a 4-month-old as well, but I've gone through the children and I realize, okay, what the market needs, what they need, right? Invested in this in the athlete sector, but have gone through so many ups and downs. And I think I'm so blessed right now. I look at it, hey, this is such a tremendous opportunity. Being the age I'm at, the knowledge I have, the wisdom I may have gained over the years, and then to be an impact and at the same time, drive a little bit of a financial engine also, totally blessed and grateful.
Yeah, that's awesome. I can see it. Well, you got the energy, the passion for it. I mean, yeah, a lot of things that you're working on. It's going to continue to evolve, and it's good stuff, man. And I appreciate you reaching out, us getting to meet. This is my favorite part about it, and just connecting with people all over the place. So, Stephen, I appreciate it. 42U, it's good stuff. NIL, I'm feeling very positive right now. This is like that connection. Like, it's always good to come out of a conversation and feel like, man, I'm seeing like things even more clear. So, thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Eric. It's been great to be on. You have a super show.
This has been a Sports E Media production.